Hello, everyone. Susan Gerbic from Psychics Explained. Now, I have something for you that's going to take me a while to get through, and I apologize in advance, but sometimes people do like these longer format videos, and I don't want to have to break this up into smaller videos. I'm going to just do this one and done. Now, what we're going to look at today is a YouTube video that is an interview by somebody named Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show. That's the name of his show. And this is really odd because, and I'm trying to even think about how to talk to you about this without going into so much detail that is just excruciating because there's backstory to backstory to backstory. So this guy, Matt Ford, is a believer in UFOs, and he has this channel. He has lots of outlets. You know, he's all over the place. So Matt Ford, a few years ago, found out that there was a Wikipedia editing team that was changing Wikipedia pages for anything that had to do with science, scientific skepticism, the paranormal. Okay, that's my Wikipedia team because there's nobody else that does that. And we do it in all languages possible. So we've been around about 10 years, 12 years now almost. Oh my gosh, a long time, way longer now. 15 years. And we've written over 2,000 pages, no, 200 million page views, over 200 million page views, on and on. So he and his friends saw that some Wikipedia pages have been changed concerning UFO topics, and they didn't like that. They didn't think that the edits were fair. They didn't like the way things were rearranged. They were just very confused because the rules of Wikipedia are the rules of Wikipedia, and I don't control anything, nor does my team. But it's nothing like a good conspiracy theory, especially when it's somebody who leans into it. And I call my group the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia, and that my team is located in a private group called the Secret Cabal. So apparently these people don't have a sense of humor. Anyway, so over 2 years ago, they did some deep dives exploring into my team and me. And I'm not going to reveal who my team members are. I mean, because they just troll these people. They troll them. It's just ugly. The things they call me, like a 4-letter word that starts with a C. Very ugly, awful memes. It's just very awful on the world of UFO Twitter. Though I have met some really nice people there, really nice people, and they actually have had some great conversations with them and they understand. But this guy, Matt, doubles down every time he's wrong. He'll triple down if he's got something wrong. He just goes into these rabbit holes. It's amazing because he has no idea what he's talking about. And we pointed that out multiple times, not even me. Other people who are Wikipedia editors have explained to him, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, you really don't. You've never had anybody on your show who understands Wikipedia editing who would explain it to you. Nope. Nope. His narrative is what it is, and he's not going to listen. But anyway, so I'm telling you all that because I know his trolls and his people are going to come over here and they're going to be leaving a lot of probably hateful comments. I have very rarely blocked anyone. And Matt Ford is somebody I've had to block because he's just his inability to actually have a conversation rationally is just, you just can't. He's so invested in this idea of being famous and being tied to these people he considers famous in the UFO world, and being this, I don't know, celebrity or something. I don't know what he thinks, but I think it's highly tied to money. And it's sad because he's probably a very talented man. He does lighting like for TV shows, and he's probably very good at it. I think he's won awards. But the point is, he's probably a very intelligent man. We in some areas, and we probably politically we're right on the same track. But I somewhere down the line, I've become somebody he just hates. I don't know what else to say, and I've had to block him. Like I said, it's just too much of my time. So, ta-da, he's entering into my world now. I don't know anything about, I know very little about Wikipedia. I mean, UFOs. I'm going to take that clip. I don't know anything about Wikipedia. I don't know anything, hardly anything about UFOs because that's just not my interest. I find folklore interesting. I find history interesting. I find psychology and why people believe these things and how can we have conversations with people who are on a different belief system than us, just like I do with the psychic mediums. I mean, I'm happy to have lots of conversations with people who don't have the same background or the same um, you know, thought process of where we're going. That's fine. Respectful conversations are wonderful, but he's not interested in that. So, but now, like I said, he's entered into a world that's my world, which is psychic mediums. And he's probably done this before, but frankly, I've never really paid any attention. He's not been that much of an interest to me. All right. So he's got this video, came out January 18th, 2026. It's a podcast, but he's also has a YouTube channel, which has 138,000 subscribers. The UFO world is massive, you guys. The world of the paranormal is massive. As you guys have always seen, somebody has says that they could do something paranormal, and it is just like flood of people that go to it. People who say, "Let me explain to you what's actually going on in the paranormal." Like nobody comes over to my channel. Nobody wants to know how it's done. They all want to believe. So he's interviewing this woman. Now, I have never heard of this woman. Maybe it'll make sense to me when we get a little farther along. Her name is Elizabeth Ray. And sometimes her last name is spelled Ray, and sometimes her last name is spelled Rae. She's called a remote viewer. And remote viewing is a pseudoscience that a lot of people, it seems to be like a catch-all, a pseudoscience that explains things that, I don't know how to say this right. There's a Wikipedia page on it, I'm sure. Remote viewing is really popular right now in the UFO community. And it's this idea that you can, I don't know, go into a trance, or you're projecting your thoughts. So they think it's a military weapon. They think you can see submarines in other places. Okay, no. The government, I think, tried testing it back like in the 1970s. The Men Who Stare at Goats, I think that was kind of that era in the 1970s, and had people taking LSD. And anyway, so they think there's some science behind it, but of course there isn't. Otherwise, we'd be using it. We'd be using it all the time. We would be military geniuses and we would have, but no, because we're not. So anyway, he's talking to this woman who is a psychic spy, and he's going to talk to her. And apparently she was a skeptic at one time, which you hear that all the time with these people. And she's a professional intuitive, and she helped the police crack a 20-year-old cold case, and only took her 24 hours. Now that's freaking amazing. So wow, she helped the police crack a cold case, and it just took her a day. Well, you know where I'm going with this. What's going on here, Elizabeth? Why, why is there so many people still on this? Why aren't you helping solve these other cases? Seriously, there's probably 1,000 or more kids on here. And that's just the American version. I mean, this is in the UK. I mean, they probably have one in Poland. They probably have these locally. And this is just children, not necessarily just the adults, or cold cases that have nothing to do with missing people. I mean, there's probably 100,000 people out there waiting to be found on websites, that advertise this. Yet they're not coming off because of psychics. And then think about all those people they found bodies over the years, and they couldn't identify them because they didn't know who it was. And every once in a while, I put one of those videos up on my YouTube channel. You guys have all seen those. because sometimes it can take 20, 30, 40, 50 years before they can identify the body they found. They don't know, they don't have the name for the person. They don't know how they died. And they, it comes to 23, 24, 25, when we finally have the science where we can identify using genetic genealogy and better methods of extracting DNA to discover who these people are. Psychics aren't figuring out who they are. I just profiled another one just the other day. The case is 40 years old, and they didn't know who had harmed and murdered this 18-year-old down in Southern California. They just fixed it. They just figured it out. They were able to extract DNA. They got to a point where they could extract it, and they were able to solve the case, and they know who the murderer is, and now he's in jail or prison. And it took 40 years. But a psychic wasn't used because psychics didn't help. So, I'm asking this question probably every third video I make. Why, if these psychics are real, aren't they solving cases and naming that they solve cases? I mean, we hear all the excuses, right? Oh, I don't want to do that. It takes a lot out of me. Or oh, I'm afraid it's going to hurt my family if I start solving cases. I mean, they say they have a gift. It's a gift from God or spirit or whatever they say. If they don't use their gift to do anything but grift, you get my meaning. Anyway, so I went and looked this woman up, and she's written a book called Cold Case Medium. Whoopie doodle. She focuses on receiving messages from victims of unsolved crimes to assist in finding remains, providing closure for families, and help bringing perpetrators to justice. I just did a Google search for her, and it's not even giving us the name of the person this case she solved with the police. I mean, I've been doing this 10, 15 years or so. I've never heard of her. She doesn't have a Wikipedia page. And you would think that a person who is that amazing solving a crime should at least have a Wikipedia page. I mean, Matt Ford and I have a Wikipedia page, and right, I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. All right, so let's look at this video, and I apologize. This video is an hour. I don't want to have to watch it, but no, it's only 30 minutes. Oh, thank goodness, it's only 30 minutes. So it's got chapters. Thank you, Matt, for giving us chapters. There's all kinds of different chapters. It's going to talk about skeptics. They're going to talk about something called the double sealed box, which is a police test. It's going to be about precognition, addressing skeptics. Ooh, that means she's probably going to talk about me. Wow. Hope she says my name right. So he's going to interview her about this cold case she solved with the police. It only took her 24 hours. I mean, I think she should be able to knock all these other ones off, no problem. At least make a dent in it. Nobody should be waiting 20, 30, 40 years. Good gracious. Good gracious alive. I mean, come on, have some common sense, people. If this ability existed, we would be using it, and we would be exploiting it for profit somewhere. And not the medium using it and exploiting it for profit, but governments would be using it. We'd be using it to fight wars. We'd be winning wars. We'd be a superpower. Whoever controls the psychics controls the world. How are we doing with that? All right, so I'm going to play this, and we're going to watch it together, because if I have to watch it, you have to watch it. I only want to watch it once. And all right, comment below, you guys. I'm sure his friends are going to come over here and try to give me heck. So be polite. These people are confused. They think I'm controlling all of Wikipedia and the world of, and I'm singly responsible for stopping disclosure of UFOs, and I'm either a government shill that is being paid by the CIA or George Soros or I need to be reported to the government and brought in to Congress to testify to Congress so that they can stop me, or they need to get a RICO case against me, or I hear I have millions of dollars coming to me from all the nefarious places that I'm getting it, big Wikipedia or something. I don't know. I've heard so many things, you guys. And my channel viewers, you know who I am. Okay, you got it. You've been watching me for 2.5 years now. Sitting in this chair at my house with my cat or cats. Yeah. And I don't think it's likely that I'm holding on to millions and controlling anything. Right. So remember that whenever you start seeing the comments. All right, here we go. So let's go over here and take a look. And as I start to share this, I should point out that this is fair use. And when his fans come over here to comment, I'm just going to let you know they're not watching the video. They're going to just be here to comment, not to actually listen to what I have to say. So there's that.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Ford and welcome to the Good Trouble Show. As most of you know, we primarily cover the UAP issue, but as we're all discovering, we live in a complex universe, and some of it gets a little woo-woo-ish. And tonight we are going to step right into that. Today's guest is Elizabeth Ray, founder of Insightful. She works with established founders and investors who believe that data, advisors, and even artificial intelligence don't always tell the full story. She describes her work as psychic intelligence, an ability she first applied while assisting U.S. federal agents on cold murder cases, and now brings it into business and strategic decision-making. Please welcome to the show, Elizabeth Ray. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. How are you? Have you finished all of your holiday shopping and all that good stuff?
I'm done. I keep it super simple. Yes.
Smart. Okay, so we met at a function at the Soul Foundation. It was kind of a small private function. And what we're about to talk about today, is kind of something that I've never really gone into on this show. But as I like to say, we live in a very complex universe, and there are all sorts of things that we don't quite understand. So how do you usually explain to someone exactly what you do, when you meet someone for the first time?
Yeah, it's tricky. So I'm an evidentiary clairvoyant psychic medium, but not many people actually know what that means. So I'll often introduce myself as a psychic detective or a psychic spy, depending upon your perspective. That's usually something someone can digest and really immediately understand what I'm up to.
Okay. And when was this something that happened at a certain age, or was there an event that triggered this ability? Or is this something you've really kind of had as long as you can remember?
No.
We're going to stop right there and we're going to comment on this as we go through these. He really is. He said, we're going to step right into it. And I kept thinking, yep, you're stepping right into it, Matt. So you notice that she's identifying herself as a psychic medium, psychic evidentiary medium, and so on. We have a channel full of psychic mediums and evidentiary mediums. She says most people don't know what that means. Well, you guys who watch this channel know exactly what she means by evidentiary medium and psychic medium and all that other stuff. These are people who claim to communicate with the dead. They say that they're providing evidence for the communication with the dead. Of course, they aren't passing tests, rigid, controlled tests. They're not really giving evidence. As you guys know, you fully know what cold reading and hot reading looks like. You guys got this. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. You know this kind of stuff. Matt, I don't I don't know. I don't know. He says this is new to him. He doesn't know this stuff. And possibly he doesn't know diddly quat about cold reading, hot reading, Barnum statements, law of large numbers, or any of the things you guys got. The other thing is the first question he had was really good. Can you explain how you would introduce yourself to somebody who doesn't know what you do for a living? That's a nice question. He does a lot of interviews. I think that's a really fair question. I think it's a nice way of introducing somebody new to the channel, especially since primarily the people who watch him are in the UFO universe. And they're starting to be, well, I don't know if it's starting because I really haven't been paying attention for a long time to the UFO world, but there seems to be some relationship to psychics. I've seen some of these people who are high up psychic people, I'm not psychic people, UFO people who believe in people like Tyler Henry. I mean, seriously, Tyler Henry? You guys know. Tyler Henry is not a medium. He's no, come on. We've shown how he's doing his stuff for years now. I mean, I know I'm laughing. Okay, I'm sorry. These UFO people don't know this stuff, you guys. It's not a world they're used to. They don't understand what Tyler Henry is doing. But you got it. Okay, that's cool. So this next question he's giving to her, and I'm pointing to the screen as if you can see the screen, right? Okay. Yeah. Susan. So this next question he's giving her is how did you know you had this ability, or when were you when you found this ability? Zero skepticism. Just right off the bat, it's like, so you have this power. I know you have this power because you said so, or you have this power because I read about you having this power, or you wrote this book. So you can tell where the interview is going is there's going to be no criticism, no, he's just defaulting to that she knows what she's talking about. He's not going to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. He's not, I know he would never ask me. I mean, when I first heard of him and his friend Rob, they were going to do this podcast or a video or something on my Wikipedia project. I saw it. It was up on Twitter. They were talking about how they're going to talk about the guerrilla skeptics on Wikipedia. And I said, hey, I'm right here. I'm happy to come on your show. I'll explain what's going on. I mean, super naive Susan Gerbic here. And the answer I got was, you would be too distracting. No, we won't be doing that. Put me on his channel, to explain the project that I had been running since 2010, because it'd be too much of a distraction from the nonsense they had uncovered, the rabbit holes they'd gone into. So he's doing it again. This person he just legitimately just assuming she knows what she's talking about. Okay. I'm expecting she's going to name some names. What do you guys think? What are the odds? We're however many minutes into this video I'm making. What are the odds she's going to give us the name of the person, the cold case she solved, and the police officers' names? What are the odds that Matt's going to ask her about that and follow up? I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea where he's going to go with this.
I had a near-death experience when I was a teenager, and that doesn't always, but can often prompt this ability. And then it sort of came in waves over time. And then I went to a organization called the Hoffman Institute, and it's a self-development institute. It's been around since the early 60s. The Hoffman process itself was channeled by a psychic medium, even though they don't brag about that. And after the process, my teacher took me aside and she said, well, this is not official Hoffman advice, but I want to let you know, as you've had all these various precognitive, postcognitive experiences throughout your life, when you leave here, the doors to your mind are going to blow wide open. And I thought, she talking about? Well, that sounds very ominous. That's exactly what happened 2 weeks later. That's what happened.
Breaking in again. So you guys have seen multiple psychic mediums when they try to give their coming of age or their coming awareness story. talk about near-death experiences. And that seems to be a very common thing for psychic mediums to, well, common enough that it's standing out in my mind. I mean, I just was listening to Suzanne Wilson, the same thing the other day, and she was talking about she had a near-death experience. And I've seen that with lots of other mediums. So it must be a very profound moment. You know, the brain is a fantastic, amazing thing. And we know a lot about what's going on in near-death experiences. There's a lot of science, serious science on it. And if you were to like read up on it, you would know what we know. There's really good research about what's actually going on in the brain. That's it. And the other thing she says is just kind of being coached into being a medium of herself. We also have seen that happen a lot, especially with women. It's a very common ploy that we see where mediums want to mentor other mediums. Usually, I don't know if it's the case in her case, usually for financial reasons, because one-on-one and gallery readings of that these mediums do has its own risks involved. You're going to find people like myself who are going to put together stings and you know, call them out and so on. But who's listening to me? You know, almost nobody. So take all the fun out of everything. It's why I don't get invited to parties. So what happens is these psychics, they find I've discovered this in the last few years, is that these lower level psychics, mediums, they make a lot of money by selling their mentorship, their workshops or seminars, their books or magazines, their articles, their whatever, and they put these other women, it's almost always women, into these communities. And it could be 50 people, 60 people, 100 people. I don't really know because I'm not in them, but it puts them in these small communities where they're all like-minded people. You're paying into this community. And so you're unlikely to challenge the other people because they're your peers, and you don't, and you know, it's, you guys know this, you know, in psychology, that we're unlikely to want to challenge our peers. We want to fit into this community, at least these self-selected people who want a community. And a lot of them are in grief themselves. And so they kind of get pushed into this world of, I guess it would be like, and this is going to sound really jovial, but I'm trying to think of a good way of explaining it, but like scrapbooking, right? So you enter into this world of this idea that I want to start scrapbooking photos, and you are maybe looking for a community of like-minded women, and then you go in and you have like meetups and social events, and then they have parties where they sell special glue and special paper and special stamps, and they're not at low prices. These are prices that are higher than you would pay somewhere else, because they'd say, oh, it's extra acid free, or it's extra special glue, and then they, you know, have classes on how to make it just right and how to journal, and then there'd be a class on how to use those circuit machines that cuts out the things, and there'd be a class on stickers, and there'd be a class on card making, and there's always another class, and of course all of them cost, and then you have to buy all the stuff, you know, and then you find yourself immersed in this community, and you think, oh, I'm really doing something amazing, I'm scrapbooking. I mean, I like scrapbooking, and you've got so much money invested in it that you can't quite get out easily by just saying, oh, that was not a really good business decision. I could have gone down to the office store and bought most of this stuff for a fraction of the cost I just paid. And I could have just watched videos on the internet on how to scrapbook. But no, you get into this little world where there's, you know, mentors and friends and stuff. And it's a little like that with the mediumship world. We all know this. We followed these mediums enough that we know they're kind of doing the same thing. They're providing a community. They're mostly all women, and it's a safe space for them. And you're buying into it, And when you start paying into stuff like that, it keeps you in it because you've already invested so much. And then you think you're helping people. I mean, because that's what they tell these mediums. You're helping people. You're giving love back to the community. And a lot of these mediums are lovely people. They're wonderful, loving people, intuitive, and really, really want to help other people. I get that. But they've fallen down into this rabbit hole, which we know, because we've done enough of these videos on it, that what happens to some of these people who get in here, they start finding that the mediums are controlling. They give health advice, medical advice, financial advice, all that kind of stuff, and it becomes a little bit of a controlling little world. Not all of them, but enough that we see it happening enough to know that this is dangerous, especially since a lot of the people who are in these worlds are in grief themselves. And so they're very vulnerable and not necessarily making great decisions. And that's kind of what we know. Okay, so that's something we know. Matt doesn't know this. All right, so let's go back to, I'm never going to get through this if I don't let her talk more. Okay, I'm going to try to let her talk more.
Wow. Okay. And you don't refer to yourself as being psychic. You call it a psychic intelligence. What is the difference there?
Yeah, I think it's the same, really. What I'm doing is just conveying that, I'm not an entertainer, right? You can provide psychic information or insight, and I'm trying to convey that this is an actual level of intelligence that all of your critical thinking, all your lived experience, all of your expert advisors or your data can't even detect. So that's why I use that phrase. It's really just another, for the people I work with, it's another layer of due diligence, if that makes sense.
Sure. And is it, so really what you're saying is being psychic and sort of psychic intelligence is really sort of one and the same. It's just kind of talking about it in a different way. Now,
right.
When when the first time that you had this happen, when you realized that you had this ability, how could you, let me back it up. When you realized you had this ability, how did that process in your mind? Was it like, wow, this is weird? Was it obvious that all of a sudden this switch had been turned on? Or did it take you a while to sort of comprehend what you now had the ability to do?
Well, I hid it for 14 years. I actually just kept it quiet. I did work with U.S. federal agents on cold murder case investigations, and then would do sessions every now and then on the down low. I think the first, I had precognition and postcognition.
Okay, no, absolutely not. He's just going to accept that she worked on cold cases with the FBI to somehow, this unnamed nobody person who, whatever. Oh no, that is not happening. How do you let that slip by, Matt? Some kind of reporter you are. You pull her up on that and say, explain that to me. I hid it for 14 years. Yeah, we hear that all the time. It's because they were having a life and they finally decided they would fall back into this because it's more lucrative than whatever the career they had before. No. Oh, I was just casually just working with the FBI, helping solve cases, because they call on me. I did sessions with them, as one does, Let's hear some names. Let's see your deets. That's just a claim somebody's making. Give me an effing break, right? No, it's not happening. Oh, when did you start? Oh, I was just busy. I've been busy. I have been busy, and I haven't been doing the stuff that I could be saving the world and solving all these crimes, but no, I've got laundry to do, and come on. Good gracious alive. Oh my goodness.
Cognition pretty early on in my life. And I think the very, very first experience I had of mediumship or being able to make contact with consciousness was I was invited to potentially collaborate on a project with a friend of mine who's an architect. And he invited me to meet him and the developer in this building in downtown Napa Valley. And it was called the Fajani Building, and it had been shut up like a time capsule for many years, like a couple, at least 2 decades. And the reason being was because two sisters owned this tavern. However, one of the sisters was brutally murdered, and
Oh, wow.
they couldn't. They were never able to solve the case. But she thought, well, if I preserve everything, all the evidence, keep it intact, maybe one day this murder will be solved. So I was given the history of the building, and then I went to sleep that night and I saw the murderer in a vivid dream. And I could see he had kind of wavy, dark, dirty blonde hair, a white t-shirt. And I just felt that he was just really angry and not that bright. And then I saw an image of, in my mind's eye, of an old fashioned tail fin of a car,
Okay.
and it was off white. It was a bit weathered. And I saw these little green, really shiny leaves around this tail fin. And I literally sat up out of my sleep. And I knew that I had just met the murderer.
Wow.
It was just an instant knowing.
Hmm.
And but what do you do with that information, right? So I just went and met with the architect and the developer, and we're given a tour of this 3-story building. And I came to a spot, and I felt this rush that sort of hit my chest, an energy that hit my chest. And the developer was facing this way, and he had kind of his head in the ice chest in the kitchen area. And I said, is this the spot where the body was found? Because I just felt this immediate presence and energy. And he said, yeah, actually, you're standing on the exact spot. And
Wow.
yeah. So my friend, the architect, turned white and the blood drained out of his face. But however, I didn't have that reaction. Because it's done, right? It's been done over 20
Sure.
years. I just knew I knew. And that was pretty wild. Here's what's really interesting. Within 30 days, through DNA testing that finally occurred, they found the murderer who was
Wow.
serving time for a violent rape in a
Okay.
Colorado prison. And he stole her white Cadillac, and it was never recovered. So that was the tail fin that I was seeing in
I
this
see.
vivid vision. So that was my introduction.
Okay. That's a pretty big introduction.
All right. So now that we know what she's talking about, let's look at the facts, right? As she said, it was solved by DNA. So this woman went into a building, had a creepy feeling. She'd already knew the history of the building. She already knew about the murders, and she had a creepy feeling about it. And supposedly she's standing on the right spot, which who knows if that's even true. And that she says there was a tail fin and a guy with a certain kind of look to him. She says, story. And I'm looking it up, and it's the Fagiani building, and it's in Napa. It's haunted. Okay, it's a 1974 murder, and it was the same, what she said. Some Anita Andrews was the daughter of the proprietor, sexually assaulted and murdered in the bar. The bar remained closed for decades after the crime. Passerbyers reported seeing it look like a murder scene. The case remained unsolved for 36 years, with the vacant building acting as a dark, notorious landmark in downtown Napa. In 2010, so this 2010, DNA evidence linked the murder to career criminal Roy Melanson, Melanson, providing closure to the story. Okay, this building was renovated. No, nothing about her. At least I don't see anything about her. All right, talks about the murder, paranormal activity. I mean, that's the industry of the ghost hunting industry is incredible. The amount of money in that. So this is 2012. So I don't know what she's been doing since 2010. I don't know what she's been doing since 2010. She must have been solving some cases. So there must be something more than that. Okay, let me ask her name. Elizabeth, it asks. Let's see what else it says. Anything about Elizabeth Ray associated with this? There's no direct connection between Elizabeth Ray and the Fringali building haunting. It's likely you may be conflating two different historical figures or locations. Okay. So you might be confusing Elizabeth Ray with Anita Andrews because both were former beauty queens whose names were frequently in the headlines during the 1970s. The definitive book on the building's history is The Napa Murder of Anita Ferengi Andrews, which was written by Ray Guadagni, a retired judge. So she's not associated with this building. I'd never heard of it until a few minutes ago. Let's check out who this guy is that was the murderer. She said he had dark hair, had a Cadillac car. What did she say about his hair? Do you remember? Let's see real quick. Let me just take a quick look. Time travel is really fun to be able to do this for you guys on your end. Listen.
And then I went to sleep that night and I saw the murderer in a vivid dream. And I could see he had kind of wavy, dark, dirty blonde hair, a white t-shirt. And I just felt that he was just really angry and not that bright. And then I saw an image in my mind's eye, of an old fashioned tail fin of a car,
Okay.
and it was off-white. It was a bit weathered. And I saw these little green, really shiny leaves around this tail fin. And I literally sat up out of my sleep. And I knew.
Okay, so let's take a look what this guy looks like. So she didn't give any information that was like his name, where he's located, that he was in prison in Colorado. Nothing helpful. Nothing at all that was helpful. She said he was a guy with with dirty blonde hair, wavy, and wearing a white t-shirt and something that had a fin on a car. So this is what I got when I did a Google search right now. He's got a white t-shirt on underneath there, but then lots of people did in that era. Let's see. Here he is now. He has a Wikipedia page because he was a serial killer and rapist. 3 murders and rapes in 3 states. The prime suspect in other cases. And he died when he was 83 in prison. Yeah, one-time fair beauty queen. She was a single mother working 2 jobs. And okay, Anita Andrews. So she didn't give any information that was actually helpful. She had a dream. She told the guy the architect she was there with, about the dream and where she was standing. Well, no, wait, she never even says that she told the guy, did she? She just says, is this a spot that that the murder happened? And he says, yeah. So this must not be the thing that she's helped the police on, because she didn't give any help to the police. She's just saying that she had a premonition. That's not helpful. Catch back up. So it took DNA, as all these cases seem to be doing now. The only way we're solving these cases is through DNA and science and good policing, not psychics. Oddly that. Okay, so Matt's all just blown away. Oh, wow. Wow.
Happened subsequently. You mentioned that you started working with law enforcement. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was on the receiving end of a menacing stalker who is a homeless man who is drug addicted and quite mentally ill and very menacing. When he was messing around with me, he had 16 restraining orders and several felonies.
Mm.
And the justice system just, recycles people like him, and they don't ever really get put away for any length of time. They're beyond treatment. But I did get a precognition that I said to my friend, there's going to be a strange man lurking at my door at night. About
Wow.
four years prior to his appearance. And I said, I think I'm going to get a taser gun. Just going to get that. So
Sure.
I did. And then lo and behold, this is what happens. And then he tried to break into my place. And, I thought I can be scared right now, or I can find courage. And so I thought, I'm not going to be scared. I'm going to find my courage. And so I had to work with special agents on this case because it was just the San Francisco DA wasn't prosecuting. He was recalled actually. So it was a mess, and I got to know them. And so I said to one of the sergeants, "Hey, did you want to be a ballerina when you were little?" And she said, "In fact, I still want to be a ballerina. And I even use the bar method to work out."
Hmm.
So we became friends, and that's how I started with cold case murder investigations. And honestly, I loved it. I really did. I felt like Wonder Woman without the big boobs and without the cape. I really felt, obviously these are tragedies that occurred, but I was able somehow to compartmentalize and look past that and focus on justice that needed to be served. And I still have a taste for justice and fairness, and I enjoy helping keep people out of harm's way. I love spotting hidden agendas that's or opportunities that people may be missing. But that's how I started really utilizing this. And then I think through the process too, I gained a lot of confidence because I was very specific in what I was getting, and it was very helpful. So that's how
So,
it unfolded essentially.
o- okay. So when law enforcement or your relationships in there, how does the process work? Do they come to you and say, Elizabeth, hey, we've got this one particular case we can't figure out?
Wait, 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 Matt. Where's the follow-up? What about the guy who had 16 restraining things against him or something like that? What about the taser? She told her friend, what the heck? I don't even understand what that was all about. She had a friend and she says, I mean, women, it's scary being a woman, you guys. Hello, everybody out there. You know that. It's terrifying being a woman, a young woman living alone or with a roommate and coming home to things. And yeah, it's scary. It's pretty damn scary. So she had a stalker but then the story changes to 4 years before she had the stalker. She decided to buy a taser and that some guy was going to come and try to break into her house. And then she says, I'm not going to be scared. So I'm waiting for her to use the taser, right? Aren't you guys all waiting for her to use the taser? I'm like, okay, she's going to take this guy down. He's going to come to her door and she's going to freaking tase the dude. That what was the taser? Why did she bring it into the conversation? So is she trying to tell us she had a psychic premonition that a woman would be harassed by a crazy man? She might need to get some kind of protection to help her and save her and make her feel better and more confident. Wow, that's never happened before. Come on. Do you know women? You know men. And then she meets up with the policewoman. The police were not taking her seriously. They're not helping her at all. She meets up with the policewoman and says, when you were a little girl, you wanted to be a ballerina. And she said, how did you know? Come and help me work on come and use your psychic abilities to work on cold cases with me. Really? That's how it happened? You're looking at a delicate woman, very petite, very fit. You think it may be musically inclined, very limber. You think maybe she wanted to be a ballerina when she was a young girl. Lots of girls want to be ballerinas. Again, it's a story. We don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, come on, that's not evidential. Oh, and I also wanted to point out whenever she started talking about this crap of what she's calling herself, and Matt's like, oh, well, what does that actually mean? How is it different from being psychic? She's like, well, it isn't. I could have told you that. Absolutely. She's just making up, trying to make herself sound better, right? I like this hidden agendas thing. Right. Okay. Well, we'll get to her book, I'm sure. There's no hidden agenda there at all. Okay, so we're still waiting for this cold case to be solved within 24 hours.
Walk us through that whole process, and is that process the same from case to case?
Well, all the cases are different and the number of leads are different, and law enforcement is quite overwhelmed and understaffed. So this is really a way to give them an advantage. By the way, I don't work with law enforcement anymore. It's just where I started. I'm still friends with I'm still good friends with one of the agents, but the way it started was they actually put a double sealed evidence box at my feet. And then they said, what can you tell us about the contents of the box? And I said, well, you've got a black baseball cap in there, but you were going to put something else in the box and then you changed your mind at the last minute. So they opened up the box and then they opened up the envelope and there was the black baseball cap. And they said, we were going to put another piece of evidence in this box, but it's more sensitive and crucial to the case. So we did change our minds at the last minute. So will you now come to the scene of the murder? And I said, yes, let's go. And so they weren't giving me background or anything. I had the essence of what happened, but not many details. So we were walking around. Go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, so we were walking around this area and where the scene of the murder was, and I just felt pulled down, and I literally laid down, face down on the sidewalk. And I said, is this the spot where the body was found? And they said, yes. And I said, well, do you want to know what his last thoughts were before he passed over? And they said, yes. And I said, well, he thought of his younger sister who has long brown hair down to her waist. Does he have a sister and who fits that description? And they said, yes. In fact, they were quite close. So that's what it looks like. It looks odd. And I want to also just interject something. I was a skeptic once.
Okay.
Now the joke's on me. I was actually always interested in all things paranormal. I would even listen to Art Bell on Coast to Coast Radio. But then when the psychic mediums came on, I would shut it off. I would like, please, that can't be possible. And I would shut the radio off. So.
And when you were speaking earlier about precognition,
So she solved the case how? That's a story. It's just a story. We have nothing to go on it but her saying the story about it was a black baseball cap in the box and that this is where the body was fell and that he had a sister with long brown hair and they were quite close, they said. It's a story. That's not evidential mediumship. There's nothing evidential about this at all yet. So I'm still waiting. So why is it, if she was working with the police, why didn't she continue working with the police? Because if she's solving crimes, why did she stop? Why wouldn't you continue solving crimes? Why would you not? If you have a gift, why would you not use your gift to the betterment of society, to solving cases, to helping people, actually helping people, but yet you write a book? Why would you do this and not really help? Because something ain't right here. Why do you stop? So that was 2010-ish. Now, maybe she has friends in the police force. Okay, so maybe somebody said jokingly, hey, let's see if you can guess what's in the box, or you can give us some ideas about it. Why don't you come down to this old crime scene and see what you think? So maybe that could have happened. I don't think it's a good idea laying on the sidewalk face down in San Francisco sidewalks. Just FYI, that's not it's pretty disgusting thinking about it. Okay. So eventually here we're going to get to what she says to skeptics like myself,
I've heard about, and I understand what that is. What exactly is post-cognition? You brought that term up, but to be honest, I've never heard it.
Yeah, so precognition is, knowing what is likely to happen in the future. Doesn't mean it will, because we all have free will, right? But here's what's trending, what's likely to happen. Postcognition, I actually gave an example of that. Like I saw the white Cadillac that was stolen from the murder victim. That was that's looking back in time, and so it's looking back versus looking forward. And then mediumship. So the difference between a psychic and a medium is quite significant. So a psychic has precognition or postcognition, but and a medium is a psychic, but a psychic is not a medium. A medium has precognition, postcognition, and also the ability to make contact with consciousness, either living or dead. So that's how I was helpful in helping investigate murders, because I get clues from the dead, the deceased, and also can get into the consciousness of the perpetrator. And so that's how it really functions. It's in this very woo category for many people, and I understand that, but it is an incredibly practical tool for many reasons, in many different ways. And the way that I use it now is working with established founders and investors and all the people around them who have hidden agendas and who are up to no good, or, who should we hire?
Tell us a bit about.
Oh, she's going to be like that woman on the Star Trek Next Generation who sits in the next to the captain and has intuitive feelings about the space aliens they meet and the other people. Troy. She's going to be like Troy. Come on. I have seen so much the last few years of cray cray that I am not shocked at all if she's actually working for a group of investors and sits in the room and acts as like a counselor who has intuitive feelings about the people and they listen to her. That won't surprise me at all these days. Hey, I just saw on Twitter that there's a group of people who are eating raw chicken. That's a fad now. I don't know if it's true, but at this point, everything feels like, yeah, I don't know. Is that true? I mean, we heard that RFK Jr. was snorting cocaine off a toilet seat. Really? I was just talking to somebody today and she says, I heard that. And I said, oh, no, that's AI or something. There's no way he said that. Apparently he did. So yeah, there's people who believe handwriting analysis, all kinds of stuff. So, okay, I'm still waiting for her to get to the point where she solved the crime within 24 hours and worked with the police to solve the crime. This old cold case, 20-year-old cold case, because surely she's not talking about, ooh, I just called you Shirley. I'm sure she's not talking about the Fergini building, because she didn't solve a crime. She just had an eerie feeling, she says. And they used DNA to find the murderer, because that must not be what Matt's talking about when they put in the description she solved a crime 20 years later. So we're going to get to this, right? Let's get to this good crime she solved. I'm waiting.
about that, because I remember you explaining that to me at the Soul Conference, which I found really, really fascinating. But if I recall correctly, you're actually doing this work for the C-suite of very big companies, Fortune 500 companies, and helping them with certain things. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, not so much C-suite, but founders, right? So because C-suite executives are more constrained and usually executing on a strategy that's given by the founder. So it's usually founders or investors, and it could be, an example of a hiring decision. So, for example, I have a client who owns 4 institutional investing firms. He's the CEO, he's the founder. And so he asked me about a hiring decision. And he said, I'm thinking about hiring this guy for this new business initiative. What can you tell me? And I said, well, he's quite round in the middle and he has very nice shoes.
Sounds like me.
I think he's much rounder than you. He's really
right.
round. You're not round.
Okay. Well, I do wear nice shoes at least. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So what it is like, so I get glimpses of identifying characteristics of the person I'm looking into. Often their hair, because that's one of the most identifying characteristics that we all possess. And so he said, well, what can you tell me? And I said, well, besides being round in the middle and having nice shoes, he lacks integrity in your eyes, and you're going to go ahead and hire him anyway. I don't even know why you're asking me. So he said, well, actually, I do feel like he lacks integrity. And he's fathered 3 children, and I'm a devoted husband and father. And that just kind of makes me wonder that from three different women, and it's not clear that he actually supports them. And so, well, you don't have to be psychic to know that that is probably not a good fit for a situation where there are a lot of trust is involved. And he did hire him because he really was feeling this urgency to fill the spot. And I asked him a couple weeks ago, how's, oh, by the way, he is round and he wears Ferragamo shoes. And so,
okay. All right. I don't wear that Ferragamo shoes, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said, how's nice shoes going? How's that going? And he said, yeah, you're right. He's doing okay, but he hasn't really met any great expectations. So I guess the reason I give that example is I'm not in charge, right? Everyone has to make their own decisions. I just help inform decisions. That's my goal. So that's one of many, many examples of how it's very practical.
And
so I don't know if you've been following Mercola, the story of Mercola, but there's some pretty serious lawsuits against by the employees of Mercola for using a psychic to make hiring decisions and to give informed judgments and to make firing decisions and so on. It's something that you can be in serious trouble for because this is pseudoscience. Same with the handwriting analysis and lie detector tests that people, and they probably still are doing, but they were using these and horoscopes too, all that kind of stuff to make informed hiring decisions. And when the employees or the prospective employees found out that the decisions that were made for if they got the job or didn't get the job, or if they got a promotion or didn't get a promotion or get disciplined or whatever, if they find out that this is what's informing the decision, well, that's grounds for penalties. They can go to the labor board or the employment, what is it called? I didn't know this is coming up. And I hadn't thought of this name. Well, you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this is pseudoscience being used as it's factual, right? So I don't know how this guy knew that his employee that he was potentially hiring had fathered 3 children from 3 different women. That's pretty iffy itself. And yeah, you're not supposed to be asking those kind of questions, and you're not supposed to be, it sounds like he has grounds. if the guy gets fired, she says 2 weeks ago, she asked about this guy. So it sounds like it's a very recent thing. So if he finds out about this, and she's just described what he looks like, and she's described his shoes, and who knows if that was right? Who knows? It's like I said, it's a story. But if this guy finds out about this, because she's naming the company and she's describing him well enough, if something were to happen to his employment, that's a lawsuit, and it's probably a pretty damn winnable one. In other words, you just can't do this kind of stuff, like using astrology, or, oh, I've got too many Tauruses we can't hire another Libra, that kind of stuff. That's just, it's, maybe I'll come up with a word. I can't think of the word. You guys will think of it. Write it in the chat, please. I appreciate it.
When people hire you to do this sort of thing, how do they find out about you, and like, how do they know that? Is it just through experience, or having worked with you? Like, how do they know that your intuition is correct about an individual? And are you ever wrong? Do you ever get a feeling about someone, and then it turns out that maybe what you were feeling does not match up with what you sort of thought would happen?
Yeah. So people work with me by referral, and what I do, I don't advertise. I don't have a social media presence. So people work with me by referral, and we have a quick meeting. And if it looks like there's something they're genuinely interested in, then what I do is I offer a 1-question reading, so that it's like going to the winery and getting a sip of the wine before you buy the bottle or join the wine club, mm-hmm. Right? So that's how it works. And yeah, I'm not all knowing, and I'm not all seeing. I'd probably be levitating instead of sitting in this chair if I was.
Sure.
No, that's impossible. It pretty much follows the 80-20 rule. So about 80% of what I share is immediately validated or validating, or it is helpful and actionable. 20% kind of makes sense, but part of that 20% of information conveyed can make perfect sense later. It can have meaning later. So all my sessions are always recorded for that reason. I remember one session I had with a professor. She was like, no. And I said, okay, well, I'm pretty confident I'm giving you pretty valid insight here. And I said, so hold on to the recording. And a year later, she sends me this long text about how this happened. But in the moment, it wasn't apparent. It wasn't easy for her to connect to. It wasn't clear. So it doesn't always play nice with time. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
And when you're talking to people, what is sort of the most common sort of skepticism you run into?
What's the most common skepticism? Matt has obviously never heard of cold reading. I love this part. I want to just repeat this part over and over. She says, I would probably be levitating. Oh no, that's impossible. But talking to the dead that's normal. We do that. That's possible. What she just described is cold reading. 80-20, give me a freaking break. So, Matt, most people cold read. Almost all psychic mediums function using cold reading tactics. That is what they do. And what she just described is cold reading. Yeah, uh-huh. How much more do I have to put? Okay, she's going to get into the skeptics now. So this has got to be getting good here. Hold on.
Into, or like, what would that skepticism typically be, and how would you respond to that skepticism?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I respect skepticism because I was a skeptic, so I do understand. And our paradigms, our cultural paradigms here in the West, our religious paradigms or atheistic paradigms or our scientific materialism really prevents us from thinking this is even possible. So I understand it. And I say it's fine. I just ask the people, people should be skeptical. I just ask that they're not cynical because that's just outright disrespectful and we're wasting each other's time. But I don't usually attract that. People have already heard of me or they know someone who worked with me. And so they come in with a certain degree of confidence and trust. And then I give them a taste of it. And if it works for them, then great. And if not, it's fine. But typically, I find that, I was in the closet for 14 years because I had in my mind that, oh, I'm going to have to deal with all this resistance and explanation and skepticism and judgment and maybe even scorn. And I've been pleasantly surprised. People are incredibly curious about this. They themselves have had precognitive or postcognitive experiences that they can't explain, or they've had a vivid dream that's come true, or they know someone. So people are much more open than I think I feared they would be. And I haven't met someone who hasn't had an experience, either directly or indirectly. So it's hard to dismiss.
Sure. And do you think that this ability is something that everyone has? It's just maybe it woke up in you and the rest of us that hasn't sort of bubbled up to the surface?
I think it absolutely exists within all of us, 100%. I do think that. I think our paradigms prevent us from believing we have the ability and listening to our intuition. I try to give the analogy, like not everyone is a 7-foot star basketball player, but you can still learn to dribble the ball and get it in the net. Absolutely. It takes just a willingness to trust your perception. That's, I think, number one. And then learning to look for the key distinctions between guessing and actually receiving intuition or magical thinking versus intuition. And I've actually trained some of my clients how to tap into their own intuition because I'm not around all the time and I want them to strengthen that muscle.
And I'm curious too, Elizabeth, has there been a personal cost, for you as a human being in having this ability? Is it something, have there been costs associated with it for you personally? And if so, are you glad you have these abilities, or is it something you kind of wish, sort of be careful what you wish for sort of thing?
This is a great question. So when this first came crashing in, it was very discombobulating. I was very dysregulated. And then I had the good fortune to meet the Dalai Lama's emissary.
Wow.
How the hell did that happen, right?
Yeah.
But someone introduced us because he is a psychic medium. He actually, before you gain audience with the Dalai Lama, he'll decide, if you're a worthy audience. And then his mother was an oracle. And then the Dalai Lama, doesn't make a move without consulting the oracle. There's like so many names for the same type of person, really. And so I sat with him in Kona and he spoke to me in his broken English and he just explained what it was like, how the Tibetan Buddhists regarded this gift. And he also explained that it was revered and it was valued. And it was a path to enlightenment. It's not enlightenment in and of itself, make no mistake, but it's a path. And he said, and then in your culture, it's a scary movie. So no wonder you're all discombobulated and dysregulated. Sure. And it did take me a minute to find the dimmer switch on this. So that helped, but I wouldn't trade this for the world. I freaking love this ability. It's so powerful. It's life affirming. It's inspiring. It's so helpful. And it's a beautiful, beautiful gift. I absolutely love it. Now, all of that said, at that same meeting where you and I met someone who has this ability through contact with, and she's wasn't so happy. She said, I don't know who to talk to about this. I can't discuss this with my family. I'm very overwhelmed by it. So I invited her to come have tea and talk about it and help her find the dimmer switch and see it as a gift. Because you will, it's, what does Wayne Dyer say? That's something to the effect of when you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change. So if you're seeing this as a curse, it will be a curse. If you're seeing this as a gift, it will be a gift. And I see it as a gift. I feel blessed. I feel absolutely blessed that I have this ability.
And
That was a good question he asked her. That was a very good question. It was, her answer wasn't very satisfying, but she meant the oracle to the Dalai Lama. Okay, and all right, okay, you did, and who's also a psychic medium. So, all right, she hasn't met many skeptics. Nobody, she's no name person. That's what I thought. And that's why she hasn't been getting pushback from the skeptic community. She hasn't actually solved any cases, has she? Because we're almost done with this video and she hasn't done any. And I'm getting to think that the person she says she's found was that story she talked about. That was it. So, I'm still looking at this. I'm looking at this map here of missing children, and I'm not seeing anything where, I would think that if she had a gift, and she calls it a gift, she did. She absolutely called it a gift. She thinks everybody has it, which again, why are we not solving cases? Let's just look at this map while I'm talking to you guys. So she should be, these names shouldn't be here. These children's faces should not be here because they would be taking them off one at a time. Look at all these cases, 385 down in San Diego, 177 in Florida. She's up in the Bay Area, up in here probably, 168, 326, 7. Texas, oh my goodness, how many's there? Why isn't it giving me a target? I don't know. But why, if you have a gift, why aren't you using your gift to help people out? Look at this case number 207, 229, 21. I hope that isn't the amount of people they have on the list. I can't even imagine. I mean, why aren't you helping? Why are you working where somebody's hiring you to give hiring advice? Am I wrong? Am I not? Is there something wrong with how I'm thinking about this? She has a gift. She considers it a gift. Yet, how is she giving back? By being paid to be a consultant for a company that hires people, who's trying to hire somebody? By writing a book? By what? How is she giving back? There's thousands, probably tens and tens and tens of thousands people who need to be found and cases need to be solved. And bodies have been found with no identification of who they are until thousands of dollars are paid to a genetic genealogist somewhere who has to spend all this time trying to produce a database of names. They finally whittle it down and test other people in the family who might be second cousins or whatever to get it down to a point where they can figure out who the person is. Like I said, some of these are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old cases. I put these up on my channel all the time. Nancy Guthrie is missing right now in Arizona. I'm recording this on the 17th of February, 2026. We're on week 3. Week 3, an 84-year-old woman was abducted from this home where she lived alone in Tucson, Arizona. I don't know when you're watching this video. Why can't she help? Why hasn't a single psychic said, here she is right here? Go to this address, and this is the name of the person who did it. Why are they doing all this police work? Why are they doing investigations and DNA, and the reporters are sitting out in front of her house? Week 3, they're driving the family crazy. They don't know if their mother is living or dead, and we don't have anything. There's psychics out there who are making all these videos about it and stuff, but they're not helping. Where's Tyler Henry, Teresa Caputo, John Edward? Where are they? Matt Frazier, Thomas Johns, Suzanne Wilson, Suzanne Northup. Where are you guys? James Von Prague, Chip Coffey. Why aren't you helping? Where are you? That's the story. What kind of heart do you have if you have some sort of ability to be able to communicate with the dead and you're not using it? Really? Seriously? And people are still playing around with this nonsense. Oh, yeah, I can talk to the dead. Yeah, communicate. Lie down on the sidewalk. Is this where he died? Yeah, this is where he died. That's not help. How is that help? That's not help. You know, a police officer wanted to be a ballerina when she's a little girl. That's not helping. Use your freaking taser, lady. Let's say Nancy Guthrie is not dead. So how is a psychic medium supposed to communicate with her? Well, she just said she can communicate with the living. She said that. That's what psychic mediums purport to be able to do. We hear that from all kinds of psychic mediums. They communicate with the dead. They communicate with the living. They tell you things that are going to happen in the future, things that happened in the past, things are happening now. They're a catch-all of all kinds of stuff. Let's say she can only communicate with the dead. Well, doesn't Nancy have dead family members who love her and are caring for her and wish her, her husband, her parents? Maybe the medium can tap onto them and say, hey, where's Nancy? What's going on? Help. It's got to be almost over. Okay, it's almost over. I'm starting to rant. I'm getting upset. I want my blood pressure to go down again. Give me a break.
And you have the ability to make contact with people that have passed on. Do I understand that correctly? Okay.
That's right.
And are you able to have that with anyone? Like, for instance, I don't know if you still have your parents here, or are you able at will to talk to deceased relatives, or like how does that work for you on a personal level?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I always say to people, I'm like a radio, but I'm not in charge of broadcasting. So whoever wants to step forward and come through will, but I don't have control over that. I'm just the vessel. And also, when something involves my own emotions, because none of this involves logic, it's all emotion, right? And so both of my parents are deceased. I've never made contact with them. And I had a friend who managed to get some psychic intelligence around my mother once. But so I will rely on my friends who are psychics we trade, right? Because you can't, it's like anybody. You can't see your own stuff very well, right? If you're emotionally involved or invested, you're not so clear thinking. So anyway, I think I do use the guidance for myself, but there are some matters that I need help with for sure. Yeah, like everybody.
And do you ever have this sort of contact and decide not to tell the person maybe some bad information that you were given by the other side?
Sometimes you do have to walk a fine line about how you deliver information, for sure. I was just having this discussion actually. So there's something called the death mask. The death mask is a gray haze that can see over someone's face in your mind's eye. And what it means is they're about to pass over. They're about to die.
Okay.
And I had a friend I saw the death mask and I'm like, oh God, how do I deliver this? Because he was very devout, born again Christian. And I was like, how am I going to deliver this? But I could tell it was urgent. So his name was Simon. And I said, Simon, how are you feeling? And he said, oh, I'm not feeling good. I'm like, you look like hell, Simon. You need to go to the emergency room right now. And I just kept on him. And he actually listened to me. And had he not listened to me and gone to the emergency room at the time he did, he would have not have received the double lung transplant that kept him alive for 2.5 years. He would have gone on to the waiting list, and he probably would have died on the waiting list. So that's an instance where, you have to be really thoughtful about how you deliver.
And I'm curious, in that particular instance, so he goes to the ER, finds out that he has to have a double lung transplant. It extends his life for a couple of years. Did this kind of death mask disappear for a period of time, or was it always there?
No, it was just in an instant that I saw it. And it was just saw it and I got the message and then I delivered the message. And then it just disappeared from my mind's eye. Yeah.
Wow.
It didn't
well,
stay.
Elizabeth, this has really been fantastic. It is, and I understand you're very private about this, but can people reach out to you and have a reading or whatever they choose to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they go to my website, they can use the contact form to reach out. If they want to learn more about it, we can connect. I just don't work with people right off the bat. I want to make sure that I can help, first of all, and that they understand what I do and what I don't do. So I'm just particular about how and who I work with, because I want to make sure I'm being helpful. And I can't help everybody. I want to help the people who I feel wired to help and who want to receive the help.
Well, that's fantastic. So we've included in the YouTube description your website so people can reach out to you if they choose to. But Elizabeth, I'm really glad you came on the show. Really appreciate it. And like I said, I was so fascinated by what you had to say at this little private soul foundation meeting. And I'm like, I got to get this lady on the show to talk about this stuff. I don't personally understand any of it, but I love the analogy that you said. I think I read it on your website that you have a car, you don't know how the car works, you just know it works.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, but Peter Scoffish of the Soul Foundation wrote a book on mediumship.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
Well, now I have something new to read. Well, I love that. Well, Elizabeth, have a great holiday, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Gosh. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I don't think he knows how this works either. Oh my God. All right, so trying to start again. All right, so let's talk about this just briefly because this has gone on long enough. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. She solved a 20-year cold case in one night. Did you guys hear it? Because I sure as hell didn't hear it. Talk about headlines being written that are crap. She solved a 20-year cold case in one night. No, she didn't do anything of the sort. I mean, that's just embarrassingly bad. I mean, no, that's not what happened at all. 3,000 views in 4 weeks. Okay, well, that's way more than I would get on a video. So she says she's working with the police. She's never solved a crime. Otherwise, she would have told us, right? She's a psychic spy phenomenon. Wow. Let's look at her website. You may reach her at insightful.foundation. gain an extraordinary advantage with expanded intelligence. What the heck? I guess she does think she's Councilor Troy. Here's her website. Okay. Yeah, so she's talking about like getting in and they get you information in there to like who you should hire and so on. What does it say? Trusted by U.S. federal agents. Available by referral. Yeah, no names. Sure she is. Incitement. Yeah, so she's just, is that, where do I get a reading? I want to know where to go sign up for the reading. Her case studies are here. Oh my God. Oh my God. Here's her case studies. I should have clicked on this earlier. Okay, it's insightful.foundation/case-studies.
My name is Raquel Lopez, and I am a retired federal law enforcement officer. I spent about 30 years plus in law enforcement in the federal government, and my major assignments were in San Francisco and in Washington, D.C. I was the lead detective sergeant, which is also known as like a lead special agent. I was in charge of the criminal investigators, detectives, crime scene technicians, and the court liaison. I became a special protection dignitary, protecting one of the cabinet members for the administration throughout different administrations. And it was a homicide that was really kind of an unprovoked homicide. Somebody was shot in the back and collapsed. There was really no witnesses, really very little evidence, but there were no good leads. It was dark. Eyewitnesses were kind of, different, slightly different stories. Some heard 2 shots, some heard 1 shot. We did open up a tip line, but the tip line ended up, we ended up getting a lot of tips, but that means you got to search each tip.
Sounds like you have a lot of work. You had a lot of work and not enough resources.
Yeah, that's true for most police departments. Well, first, I'd like to say that you had no knowledge of this case. The things you had mentioned or when we went to the scene was where you actually laid on the floor, which I was not expecting, but you went down there and I'm like, that's fairly close without getting the exact measurements. That was pretty much the right area. And you even went down facing the correct way where the head was. Since his last thoughts was his sister and I believe his grandmother.
Yes.
Something that I did confirm that he was very, very close to with his sister and grandmother. So I can see that being the last thoughts. I did have a piece of evidence that I wanted to present to you. It was still sealed and I kind of gave it to you, since that it was, I believe it was a black cap.
Black baseball cap.
The baseball cap, which he was wearing. I think you even mentioned that that wasn't the initial thing I was going to pick and then I switched it, which I did.
You see me laying on the sidewalk, where the body was found, how the body was found. You hear me describing his last thoughts, which are pretty verifiable. You hear me telling you what's in the box. I have no way of knowing, and telling you and you changed your mind. How did you feel? How did all this feel for you?
My initial thought was you weren't going to get anything. We're just going to see it. Something I was going to try and see if it worked. And so when you came up with these things that were fairly accurate, I said, okay, now I feel like, there's one more work, because you actually mentioned you saw a suspect or you saw somebody of interest. The other thing I felt was that, okay, so now I have to kind of convince some other people to work with you. This is like an unspoken rule, I think, that a lot of police departments do. So, because they need some evidence, they need some direction. When we keep on coming up to dead ends and starting a new path and dead end and another one that just keeps on going, we're like, okay, we're going to go crazy, think of all these different, things that with dead ends, think outside the box. I did include that in the information and as far as looking at persons of interest, people that you described fit that character. So, and I believe that actually there was one, because I definitely know there was at least one person that we were looking at that kind of fit the bill.
So how is this different? Like you have probably a protocol or a way of working in an investigation. So how is this different?
It's very different. With police work, you have to have facts. It's all scientifically based evidence, and generally that's how cases are. I mean, there's so much circumstantial evidence out there that all the jury, the judge, anybody will just rip it apart. So it's with this one, which is kind of a very unconventional way of thinking. You have information, you provided information to us. Now we have to make that into a fact.
I'm still not seeing where she helped. So she's got somebody who works in the police department that she cold read, and they're giving her a testimonial. We've got reading after reading after reading where people who think they got a real reading. I've got videos, probably 200 videos or more of people who think they got a real reading. And that was no different. So just because she's pulled the wool over the eyes of a police detective, sitters aren't stupid. I mean, some of these people are highly educated. They just fell for the trick. So she didn't give the name of anybody. She didn't describe who it was, the victim, who the perpetrator was. She says, yeah, you gave a description of somebody who sort of fits somebody that we were looking at. That was not helpful. I wonder what the description was. Did you think that maybe the description of the person who, think in your mind's eye right now, you're in San Francisco, who would be shooting a young man wearing a baseball cap on the street of San Francisco? Would it be an 80-year-old woman with a grocery bag? No. I bet it was a 6-year-old child. No. I bet it was a professor at the University of Berkeley who had horn-rimmed glasses and just, no, there's a stereotype of who it is who's probably shooting somebody, and they're probably very similar in age and general description of what this person, who the person was. It's not like she gave a name or anything. He was probably average height, and he had kind of brownish hair, kind of darker kind of eyes, and kind of sort of tan skin, and kind of a medium build, and he had on shoes that could look like tennis shoes. And okay, so I'm looking at her services, and it's there's no price. She's not showing readings. You can go, no, there's nothing here. There's nothing as far as price or anything like that. This is not helpful. So she'll give you an estimate, and she's very particular who she gives a reading to, like Suzanne Wilson is now. Hey, Suzanne. So let's just lastly, let's go right back to this. She didn't solve a case. That was just, no, Matt did a pretty good job with some of the questions. They're very good, because he didn't know what he's talking about. So he asked some good questions. Look at that. Here, look what's going on in Maine. Here's all these missing people in Maine. Come on. There's so many people on here that I can't get through. It's taking a minute to go there, and I have very fast internet. Look at all these. Well, these are the same people that were there a minute ago. So I don't know. It's not showing. It's being very slow. Yeah, I'm clicking on it. 2 cases. Yeah, it's being very slow. we go. Stephanie Damron and Bernard Ross are missing in that area. There's Stephanie. She's been missing since September 2024. She's 15 now. She has green eyes, brown hair. She's missing out of New Sweden, Maine. There's a poster, which probably has all the details. Oh, there she is, as a little girl. Last seen. How sad. It's just somebody random. Why doesn't Elizabeth want to help her? Why doesn't she want to help her family? Why? Why? Elizabeth, why aren't you helping her? Why won't you help her? Well, she's been missing since September 2024. Suzanne Wilson, Tyler Henry, Matt Frazier, Thomas John Edward. Nobody want to help out a little kid in 15-year-old girl in Maine who was missing when she was about 13? No? No takers? What about your gift? Matt didn't ask those questions. He just took her word for it when she said he helped, whatever that help means. Sorry. Not buying it. I want to hear from my team. Come on, people. Let's hear some comments.